From the confines of his desk in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump initiated a series of executive actions that would define his administration's approach to immigration policy. With a sense of urgency and a clear intent to fulfill his campaign promises, he signed multiple executive orders and proclamations that sought to implement significant changes to the existing frameworks governing immigration in the United States. One of the most notable orders addressed the contentious issue of birthright citizenship, a principle enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. This principle grants citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil, regardless of their parents' immigration status. Trump's administration aimed to redefine this long-standing interpretation, suggesting that it could be modified through executive action rather than a constitutional amendment, an assertion that legal scholars and experts argued was legally dubious at best. In addition to the focus on birthright citizenship, Trump declared a national emergency concerning illegal immigration along the U.S.-Mexico border. This declaration was a strategic move to draw attention to what he and his supporters characterized as a crisis, citing rising numbers of illegal crossings and the associated challenges that border states faced. By positioning illegal immigration as a national emergency, Trump sought to mobilize federal resources and support for stricter enforcement measures. The implications of these actions were profound. Advocates for immigration reform and civil rights groups reacted with outrage, launching immediate legal challenges against the executive orders. Organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and various immigration advocacy groups viewed these decrees as not only an affront to established legal norms, but also as a direct attack on the rights of immigrants and their families. They argued that such sweeping changes could have devastating impacts on thousands of individuals who had built their lives in the U.S. under the protections of existing laws. The backlash from these advocacy groups was swift and relentless. They pointed out that the administration's attempts to alter the interpretation of birthright citizenship could lead to widespread confusion and fear among immigrant communities. Many individuals, particularly those who are undocumented or whose immigration status is precarious, expressed concern about the potential repercussions for their families and children. The fear of being stripped of citizenship rights based on a redefined legal standard was a significant source of anxiety, as it threatened to undermine the stability that many had sought in their lives in America. Moreover, the legal challenges posed a significant hurdle for the Trump administration. The complexities of immigration law, combined with the established legal precedents surrounding birthright citizenship, meant that any attempts to change this definition would likely encounter rigorous scrutiny in the courts. Legal experts predicted that a protracted battle would ensue, with lower courts initially ruling on the constitutionality of these executive orders, followed by potential appeals that could reach the Supreme Court. In this context, it is important to examine the broader implications of Trump's immigration policies within the political landscape of the United States. Immigration has long been a polarizing issue in American politics, often serving as a rallying point for both conservative and liberal factions. For Trump and his supporters, strict immigration control was not just a policy preference, but a central tenet of their political identity. They viewed the enforcement of immigration laws as essential to national security, economic stability, and the preservation of American culture. Conversely, opponents of such policies argued that they undermined the values of diversity and inclusion that have historically defined the nation. They contended that immigrants contribute significantly to the economy, bringing skills, labor, and innovation that benefit society as a whole. The debate over immigration thus encapsulated broader discussions about identity, belonging, and what it means to be an American in the 21st century. As Trump's presidency progressed, the focus on immigration intensified, with each executive order and public statement further polarizing the national discourse. The administration's approach was characterized by a series of high-profile raids, increased border patrol activities, and controversial policies such as family separations at the border. These actions drew widespread condemnation from humanitarian organizations and prompted protests across the country, as citizens rallied against what they perceived as inhumane treatment of vulnerable populations. In the face of mounting criticism, Trump and his administration doubled down on their messaging, framing their actions as necessary for the safety and security of American citizens. They positioned the narrative around immigration as one of law and order, portraying unauthorized immigrants as threats to public safety and economic well-being. This rhetoric resonated with a significant segment of the population, particularly among those who felt economically disenfranchised or culturally threatened by demographic changes in their communities. As the 2020 presidential election approached, immigration remained a key issue for Trump, who sought to galvanize his base by emphasizing his administration's accomplishments in this area. He often touted the construction of a wall along the southern border as a symbol of his commitment to controlling illegal immigration. However, the wall became emblematic of deeper divisions within the country, with critics arguing that it represented a misguided approach to a complex issue that required comprehensive reform rather than punitive measures. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic added another layer of complexity to the immigration debate. The pandemic prompted a reevaluation of many policies, including travel restrictions and public health measures that disproportionately affected immigrant communities. The crisis highlighted the essential roles that immigrants play in the workforce, particularly in sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and essential services. As the nation grappled with the effects of the pandemic, discussions around immigration were intertwined with broader themes of resilience, vulnerability, and the interconnectedness of communities. From his desk in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump initiated a series of executive orders and decrees that were designed to enforce stricter immigration policies across the United States. This marked a significant moment in his presidency, as he took decisive action to fulfill some of his most prominent campaign promises regarding immigration reform. One of the notable orders he signed focused on redefining the parameters of birthright citizenship. This concept, rooted in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, grants citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. Trump's administration sought to challenge this long-standing interpretation, arguing that it incentivizes illegal immigration and places an undue burden on American resources. The move was controversial and sparked intense debate among legal scholars, politicians, and the general public. Many viewed it as an attempt to undermine a fundamental American principle, while others supported the idea as a necessary measure to control immigration. In addition to addressing birthright citizenship, President Trump declared illegal immigration at the southern border a national emergency. This declaration was accompanied by a series of measures aimed at bolstering border security, increasing funding for border wall construction, and deploying additional resources to immigration enforcement agencies. The urgency of this declaration was rooted in the administration's narrative that illegal immigration posed a serious threat to national security and public safety. By framing the issue in such stark terms, Trump aimed to galvanize support among his base and justify his aggressive immigration policies. The initiatives announced by Trump were not without their challenges. Legal experts and advocacy groups quickly mobilized in response to his executive orders, asserting that many of his proposed changes would likely face significant legal hurdles. Organizations dedicated to immigrant rights expressed outrage over the administration's attempts to redefine birthright citizenship, arguing that such measures were not only unconstitutional, but also discriminatory. These groups prepared to mount legal challenges, aiming to protect the rights of individuals who are affected by these sweeping policies. Moreover, the political landscape surrounding immigration was already contentious, with many Democrats and some moderate Republicans opposing Trump's hardline stance. The division within Congress regarding immigration reform further complicated the administration's efforts. The debates were often heated, with discussions centering on the balance between national security and the humanitarian treatment of immigrants. Critics of Trump's approach argued that his policies fostered a culture of fear and discrimination, particularly against Latinx communities. As Trump pressed forward with his immigration agenda, the broader implications of his policies began to emerge. Community organizations and local governments expressed concern about the potential ramifications of stricter immigration enforcement. Many feared that increased deportations and harsh penalties for undocumented immigrants would tear families apart and create an environment of distrust among immigrant communities. This fear was compounded by reports of aggressive enforcement actions, which often targeted vulnerable populations. In the face of mounting opposition, the Trump administration continued to emphasize the necessity of these immigration reforms. Officials argued that a secure border was essential for protecting American jobs and maintaining public safety. They pointed to statistics and anecdotes that illustrated the perceived dangers of unchecked immigration, framing their narrative around the need for a more controlled and orderly immigration process. The situation reached a boiling point as advocacy groups filed lawsuits against the administration's actions. These legal battles became emblematic of the broader struggle over immigration policy in the United States. Each challenge brought heightened scrutiny to the administration's rationale and the methods it employed to implement its agenda. Courts became arenas for contentious debates over constitutional rights and the limits of executive power. As the Trump administration navigated these legal challenges, it also faced internal pressures. Some officials within the administration were concerned about the potential backlash from various stakeholders, including business leaders who relied on immigrant labor. The agricultural sector, in particular, expressed worries about labor shortages resulting from stricter immigration enforcement. This tension highlighted the complexities of immigration policy, where economic considerations often collided with political ideologies. In this fraught environment, the dialogue surrounding immigration policy in the United States continued to evolve. Public opinion remained divided, with some segments of the population supporting Trump's hardline approach while others called for comprehensive immigration reform that addressed the root causes of migration. The debate highlighted the multifaceted nature of immigration issues, encompassing economic, social, and humanitarian perspectives. As the legal battles unfolded and public discourse intensified, it became clear that the future of immigration policy in the United States was at a critical juncture. The outcome of these challenges would not only shape the lives of millions of immigrants, but also set precedents for how future administrations might approach immigration reform. The stakes were high, as the implications of these policies reached far beyond the immediate political landscape, touching on fundamental questions of identity, belonging, and the values that define the nation. In conclusion, President Trump's aggressive immigration agenda represented a pivotal moment in American politics, reflecting deep-seated divisions within society regarding immigration. His executive orders, particularly those aimed at redefining birthright citizenship and declaring illegal immigration a national emergency, ignited fierce debates and sparked significant legal challenges. As advocacy groups rallied against these measures, the broader implications for immigrant communities, national security, and the American identity continued to unfold, underscoring the complexity and urgency of the immigration issue in contemporary America.